Hello everyone, welcome back. And once again, this is Professor Dr. Muhammad Munirujjaman Khan, a faculty of sociology. This is the records and the recording, the lectures, the last one, the part 4 of chapter 2 that we have addressed in our part 1, 2, and 3. Finally, today we will focus on cultural variation, or in other way, cultural difference. What makes the cultural variation, and what are the different aspects of cultural variation? The variation that we have in our culture, what are the different aspects? Like the people, even we are living in the same society, some people may have a group of people may have a cultural variation with other group of people. So what makes the cultural variation? For example, look, the people who are living in city, the food habit that we the people have, the people who are living in the city, the people who are living in the urban area, the way of life, the way of thinking, the people who are living in the urban area, the food habit, the people who are living in the urban area is definitely different, will vary than the people living in the rural area. I repeat, what do you mean by cultural variation? That's what we wanted to mean. Let's say, for example, the people who are sitting, the people who are living in the urban area, don't you think we have different food habit than the people living in the rural area? Definitely you will say the answer is yes. So why? And what are the different aspects of cultural variation? That's what we are going to address in this part and in lecture 4, and this is the last part of chapter 2. The aspects of cultural variation we can divide as subculture, counterculture, cultural relativism, cultural ethnocentrism, and cultural shock. I repeat. And these are details you will find in our lecture and lecture materials, also in the book. The aspects of cultural variation, once again, it could be subculture, counterculture, cultural shock, cultural relativism, and cultural ethnocentrism. So what is cultural shock? What is the meaning of the word shock? Before I want to talk about cultural shock, what is the meaning of the word shock? Shock is something that make you have a feelings you are not oriented. You are not oriented. It's not common. Cultural shock. So one aspect of cultural variation, it is cultural shock. Whenever you are not oriented, some events we have in our society, some people do try. Whenever you observe, you find some cultural practices in a society, in a country, or the culture you belong to, that make you sort of like you are not oriented. You are confused. You are uncertain. You have feelings like out of the place. Whenever you will have these sort of feelings, one from a cultural practice, that we say is a cultural shock. Let's say, for example, if we say Bangladesh, a country, it's a predominantly a Muslim country. So there is something, there are some cultural practices in terms of having food for Muslims. As you say, halal and haram. So having, drinking or eating something that is not allowed in my culture, in my religion, The things that is not allowed in my culture, in our culture, or in a particular culture, but if someone do it, once you find that, once you see that, you will become like disoriented, uncertain, confused. You will have feelings like out of the place. That's what we said, cultural shock. For example, if you have a look in the public place, you will see people are smoking. People are smoking. The people whoever they are smoking, who are they? You will see in most cases, normally it is the male. It is the male. They smoke in public place. So we are used to, we are habituated to see males are smoking in a public place. I'm talking about in my country, for example, Bangladesh. All of a sudden, if you start seeing, if you find, it is not the males anymore. It is not the boys. It is not men. Rather, the women, the girls are smoking in a public place. You will get sort of like, you will get feelings like, where am I? Am I in my city? It's a cultural shock. The things, the practice that make you uncertain, confused, out of the box, out of the society, out of the place. It's a good example of cultural shock. The things that are not common, that we are not used to see, as I said, smoking by girls, smoking by females in a public place in the context of Bangladesh, cultural shock. Another aspect of cultural variation is subculture. Subculture. Within a large culture, within a large culture, within a large society, you will find a small group of people, a number of people, a section of the people within a large group of people. You may have a small group of people, a small number of people, they have a different culture, practice, norms, values, language, way of life, way of thinking, food habit, different clothing than the larger culture, than the larger part of the society. I repeat, when in a large culture, within a large culture, a small group of people will have distinctive pattern of cultural practices that includes language, food habit, clothing, way of life, etc., etc., etc. That is a subculture. For example, if we take Bangladesh as an example, we all the people are Bangladeshi. We have our common practices largely, as well as at the same time, we have some tribal people, some tribes in our society, some ethnic group like Chakma, Marma, etc., etc. They are living in Bangladesh. They are part of our large culture, as well as they have a distinctive pattern of way of life, culture, like language, like food habit, like clothing. That is subculture. The third aspects of cultural variation is counterculture. The countercultural group is also a group of people who have distinctive pattern of practices like subcultural group. I repeat, when a small group of people in a large culture, they have a distinctive pattern of culture, language, norms, values, food habit, clothing. We said that is subculture. And the counterculture group is like a subcultural group, but when a subcultural group, a small number of group of people have a distinctive cultural practices, and if that cultural practice conflict and have clash with the large culture, create threat to the large cultural practices, then a subcultural group itself become a counterculture. I repeat, counterculture is once again a small number of people, a group of people in a large culture, but when that small group of people, the culture they have, that does conflict, have a clash, create a threat to the large culture, then a small group of culture, subculture, become a counterculture. In the global context, I can give you an example. Around 1960s and 70s, in America, particularly in America and Europe, they have observed a group of people who have distinctive pattern of cultural practices. I believe you all know hippie culture, a hippie group, a group of young people, a group of people who have a distinctive pattern of cultural practices that does conflict with the larger culture, with the large cultural practices. For example, we said in the context of global society, hippie culture. Once again, counterculture is a cultural group that conflict, the culture they have, the practice they have, the culture practice that conflict, that create threat, that create problems to the larger culture. Counterculture. Another aspects of cultural variation is cultural ethnocentrism. So what is cultural ethnocentrism? Cultural ethnocentrism is nothing other than discriminating, creating inequality, discriminating or creating discrimination between or among culture. Like the people who are living in the urban area, we have a different way of life that the people living in extreme remote area, in a rural village, rural area. So whenever, if you think the way of life, the cultural practices you have in the urban area, that is better, that is superior than the people, than the culture people have living in the rural area, extreme remote area. And the culture they have, the people living in the rural area, that is inferior. And you, the people living in urban area, you have better culture, superior culture, that is cultural ethnocentrism. You are discriminating. If people from America, they think they have the culture they have, that is superior, that is the best, that is superior to the Indian culture, that is better than the European culture, that is better, or that is the best. These sort of things is a cultural discrimination, cultural inequality. We do call that cultural ethnocentrism. The culture that you have, the people you are in the urban area, you have better opportunities, okay? It's your reality. That doesn't mean your culture is the best culture, you are superior. Whenever you are creating a discrimination or inequality like that, then we do call that cultural ethnocentrism. And finally, the last one, last aspects of cultural variation is cultural relativism. Relative. What do you mean by that? Cultural relativism. To see the culture of the people, other people, to see the culture of the other people, to have a look, the culture of the people living in the rural area, not through your eyes. Rather, you have to see their culture, the reality, their way of life they have from their lens, through their eyes. Whenever you are in urban area, you are having lots of facilities, lots of privilege, lots of opportunity. That the people in the rural area living, they are not having the opportunity. That makes a cultural gap between you and the people living in rural area. So if you judge, if you want to make a comment on the culture of the people living in the rural area, you can't judge them from your position. You can't say you are the best. Rather, you need to judge, you need to justify, you need to make a comment on their culture from their position, not from your position. That's what we said cultural relativism. You will see, for example, sometimes we do see in the newspaper, in the media, racism in Europe, particularly in Europe and America. It is, you know what? It is because of cultural ethnocentrism. To think, the people think, the white people, they think their culture is the best culture. Cultural ethnocentrism, discrimination, racism. It's a cultural ethnocentrism. It's a cultural discrimination. So how to see the culture of the people of the different corner of the world? Not from my position, rather from the position of the people living in the remote area. That is what we say cultural relativism. So I repeat in the summary, cultural variation, aspects of cultural variation is nothing other than what are the different lens. In the name of aspects, we said subcultural group or subculture, we said cultural shock, we said cultural relativism, we said counterculture, and finally we said cultural ethnocentrism and this and that. So these are the 4 aspects of cultural variation, and that is end of chapter 2. And see you sometimes, inshallah, for other chapters. Till then, Allah Hafiz, stay safe and stay good. Maintain social distance. Thank you all. Once again, thank you all. And I must say Allah Hafiz for now.